In popular psychology, the notion of imposter syndrome is one that has been very, very grossly misunderstood. We have been led to believe that this nagging sense of self-doubt, this sense that we will be exposed as incapable and fundamentally vulnerable despite our appearance towards the world of being capable and self-assured, is something to be sort of tempered, and it's something that you can work through to improve. Perhaps it was caused by a parent that was too demanding, or perhaps you have perfectionistic tendencies that are making you feel like you're going to be exposed at some point. Maybe you have not enough self-empathy to your shortcomings as a human being. Any of these things are to blame, let's say, in psychology's eyes, as why you have this imposter syndrome. My name is Pablo, this channel is Meditation Amsterdam, and today I want to give you a different or an alternative view of what imposter syndrome really is, where it actually comes from, and not just how to get rid of it, but actually how to delve into that sense of doubt so that you can discover what's pointing at. What it's pointing at is something very uncomfortable, which psychology doesn't deal with at all. And I'm going to start with that part to later go into what to do about it. The reason psychology doesn't deal with imposter syndrome in an effective way is that pure beingness is not considered something in psychology that is workable. Sometimes it's ignored altogether. So our core self, our core being, is rarely dealt with, and we mostly deal in popular psychology on the level of the egoic personality as the ultimate stage of what a human being is, and therefore the egoic personality is something to be improved, if not perfected. Now, if you don't consider being as the fundamental layer of what you are, and only try to deal with things on the level of egoic personality, you've already missed the mark. And the reason for that is that the entire egoic personality, it's only a surface layer made up of thoughts, trauma responses, memories, and bodily contractions, all bundled together. And that bundle tends to hijack your sense of core identity, so that you start to confuse yourself. You essentially confuse yourself with a mental process. That mental process has not only no real being, no fundament in reality, but it is also a mental process that developed as a defense mechanism towards a sense of vulnerability that you felt as an infant when you realized that you were a separate entity in a physical environment that was completely vulnerable. That vulnerability needed to be disassociated from, protected, and in order to do that, you developed an entire activity of mind that we call our personality. That personality hijacked our sense of core identity so that we then go through life thinking that we are our personality. However, there's a nagging doubt in the back of our heads, because that personality in our heart of hearts is known to be spurious, is known to be just a bundle of mental activities. And so we feel a core sense of lack or a core sense of falsity. And that translates as imposter syndrome. So as it turns out, imposter syndrome is pointing out in your intuition, in your deep core intuition, is pointing out not at the fact that you are judging yourself too harshly or that you may have shortcomings that you ought to be insecure about. Is pointing out at the fact that your very sense of identity has been hijacked and occupied by something that is not you. It is only a bundle of memories, opinions, trauma responses, and bodily contractions that is pretending to be you, or that it has or with which your awareness has identified. Now, this is not easy to hear and is not easy to process, much less easy to let go of. And what I would submit to you is that rather than trying to pacify this sense of doubt, this sense of being fake, because it creates a lot of distress and insecurity, that this is the very distress and insecurity that we need to dive into in order to expose what is actually going on. So whereas popular psychology would try to make sure that you are not feeling too much distress, that you are able to be functional, we don't just want to be functional. We want to go beyond that and to realize, to self-realize through our core identity and away from this bundle of mental activity that has hijacked our true identity. There's no way to become self-realized unless the fakeness that is our entire personality is exposed. That doesn't mean that we are being intentionally fake. It doesn't even mean that our personality is not healthy or effective. It could be all of those things. What it means is that our personality is not what we are. It is simply a bunch of mental activities that are running on their own and which are so hypnotic and so encompassing that they cloud our real sense of self. So once you understand this, you then understand that imposter syndrome, that deep-seated insecurity, that deep-seated sense of something's not right, of I'm going to be exposed, is felt because we are identified with something that is in fact not right, that is in fact false. The personality is in fact an imposter. And nobody wants to hear this because we are completely invested in our personality and invested in that sense of self. But once you realize this, once you come to terms with it and start to do some of the work that is required to decouple your core identity, your pure awareness from your personality, this starts to become very clear. And it also starts to become very workable. So what this video is about is trying to bring to surface the fact that imposter syndrome is actually correct. It is not something to be done away with or like grown out of or become blasé about, but it's in fact pointing out through your core intuition that something is simply not right. And that in listening to that core intuition, you stand a chance of discovering your true identity, become self-realized. But that if we are unwilling to go into that discomfort, if we simply want to brush it aside, or if we want to try to use psychological tricks to prop ourselves up and not go into the uncomfortable space of doubt and vulnerability, we will completely miss the mark. We will continue to have imposter syndrome because the nagging doubt is a core part of that personality, which is a false identity or only a surface layer of our identity. And we will miss out on the opportunity to realize our real sense of self, which is trying to point out and is screaming out as this is not right. And we will essentially not, we will miss the mark as to the next level of development as human beings, which is not just the egoic personality. So I hope that video helps. If you think the content is valuable, do like, subscribe and share so that other people can also benefit from this content. And as usual, I'll be back with more. Thank you.